Hi, my name is CJ Webley. I'm one of the Tamasha playwrights. Today we're going to be looking at locations for your play, and it's important to think about your own surroundings. So, where are you from? So, I'm from the Midlands. I'm actually from Birmingham, but now I live in Warsaw. So that means my location is slightly different than it was. So if I go around my area, there's actually a building site. There's actually some shops down the road. There's some interesting alleyways where there's some artwork on the walls and things like that. So when we're thinking about our plays, it's important to think what would be interesting and more visually pleasing for the audience to see. So when we go into the theatre, it's usually kind of an end-on setting or end-on um, venue, which means that the stage is kind of facing towards you as the audience facing back. So when you're thinking about your location, think if I was going into a theatre or anywhere where a performance is taking place, what would be quite interesting to see on stage? So for me, if I'm thinking about my own location now, a couple of weeks ago, there was actually a really interesting incident that happened, and you can kind of see it here on the screen. There was actually a massive sinkhole that took place down the bottom of my road, and it meant that none of the cars could obviously go down that way. Um, but imagine if this was in a theatre and we were doing kind of a promenade piece where the audience is actually involved in the piece. Imagine if there was a massive hole in the center of the room. How interesting would that look? It would be really interesting. Obviously, it can be quite dangerous, so it would have to be really carefully monitored. But it would be interesting for the audience to see. Automatically, when they come in the room, they're thinking, "What is going on there? What is that massive sinkhole doing in the middle of the theatre?" So this is the kind of impact or effect you want your pieces to have immediately. So if an audience member comes in to watch your show, you want them to think, "Wow, this is going to be interested. This is going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to sitting back and seeing what this is all about." So I'll call this location sinkhole. Okay. So let's describe this location. Um, Five things to describe it. Okay, it's quite large. There's a lot of space. It's not enclosed. It's quite open. But there is a space on there that you can't go, which is obviously around the sinkhole. So let's imagine that someone did enter into that sinkhole. What would it be like? It would be dark, or it would be light, depending on the day, depending on the time of day. So I could put dark or light. What else can I see? I can see a van or construction van. So I can see a construction van. What does this van look like? The van is um, it's relatively empty. So I'll put the space is quite empty. So we've got large. It could be seen as dark or light depending on the time of day, and it's also quite large. So I won't go too much into that. So you kind of get the point. You're gonna get an image like this, and you're gonna try and describe what it looks like. So, if we were going into a theatre, what would be kind of the opposite of an interesting location? So, we've got this one with the sinkhole. I've got an example down here of something that I wouldn't necessarily think is that interesting. A living room. Oh, put that in the wrong section. But yeah, living room. So, it's there's probably 1,000 plays that are set in a living room, but how many are actually set in a sinkhole or in an area around or surrounding a sinkhole? Now, this is something that literally happened down the road from me. So it's important when you're writing your plays to think about the areas around you and how you can use those in your work, because nobody can tell the story of where you come from better than you, because you have your own unique experience of that. So, for example, if it was a living room, you can say that there is a, I'd say that's a beige chair. Let's say it's a beige chair, beige sofa rather. Um, Of course, you can create a beautiful piece of theatre in a living room, but imagine if that same piece was taking place where the sinkhole is. So always think when you are creating your play or trying to create this new world, what would be more interesting for the audience to see? Would it be the living room or would it be the sinkhole?